Tonight, unlike most Friday nights, we won't be singing Lecha Dodi. However, I want to bring our attention to an intriguing line from that beloved piyut, that liturgical poem. Perhaps you remember the sound of these words, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. The end is embedded in the beginning. This concept appears as well in the Yigdal poem, where God is described as Mabit lesof davar bekadmato. God sees the ending in the beginning. While this appears to be an esoteric statement, it also contains a very practical and useful idea. In my previous career as a psychotherapist, I was taught that one must take special care in noting all of the details of the very first session with a client. Why? Because, I was taught, every issue that will eventually arise in the course of treatment will be expressed in some form in that very first meeting. With that in mind, tonight, as we begin our 25 hours of reflection, fasting, and prayer, I turn our attention now to the end of this holiday, to the book of Jonah, which we will read tomorrow afternoon as we count down the final hours of our fast. The end is embedded in the beginning. Jonah is a remarkably consistent fellow. Some might say rather rigid. His attitudes and his judgments do not shift despite his direct encounters with God, his encounter with a whale, and even with a near-death experience. He does not believe that a sinner is entitled to forgiveness despite honest and sincere repentance. His judgments of others' wrongdoings are fixed. In his worldview, there is no room for forgiveness. Throughout the narrative, it appears that God is trying to school him in the complexities of truth and the quality of compassion. Interestingly, Jonah's full name is Yonah ben Amittai, which translates as Jonah, the son of my truth. But Jonah is not interested in the nuances or complexities of truth. He sees the world in black and white terms, and he desires swift and uncompromising judgment. Yom Kippur, however, is about softening the heart. It is one full day devoted entirely to forgiveness. We engage in confession, prayer, and self-reflection in order to facilitate real changes in ourselves. We fast in order to weaken our defenses and create the kind of emotional softening that supports honesty, vulnerability, and the healing of relationships. This is the kind of soul work that is so terribly needed today. This work begins at a personal level, but it carries implications for the most deeply dividing conflicts in our community, in our society, and in our world. In a commencement speech at Brandeis this year, Ken Burns, noted historian and documentarian, said the following: "I've been struggling for most of my life to try to tell good, complex, sometimes contradictory stories, appreciating nuance and subtlety and undertow, sharing the confusion and consternation of unreconciled opposites. But it's clear, as individuals and as a nation, we are dialectically preoccupied. Everything is either right or wrong, red state or blue state, young or old, gay or straight, rich or poor, Palestinian or Israeli, my way or the highway. Everywhere, we are trapped by these old, tired, binary reactions, assumptions, and certainties. And he goes on and says, if I have learned anything over those years, it's that really there's only us. There's no them. Burns expands his point by referencing the work of Nobel Prize-winning author Isaac Bashevis Singer. And he tells this story. Toward the end of his long and prolific life, Isaac Bashevis Singer expressed wonder at why so many of his books, written in this obscure and some said useless language, meaning Yiddish, would be so widely translated, something like 56 countries all around the world. Why, he would wonder, with his characteristic playfulness, why would the Japanese care about this simple stories of life in the shtetls of Eastern Europe? Unless, Singer paused with a twinkle in his eye, unless the story spoke of the kinship of the soul. I think that what Singer was talking about was that indefinable something that connects all of us together, that which we all share as part of organic life on this planet, the kinship of the soul. Tonight, I want to share with you the hope-filled work of the Parents Circle Families Forum. It is a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization of over 700 families who share a kinship of the soul. All of these families have lost a family member to the ongoing conflict since 1995. They come together to share their stories of their loved ones, their grief, and their dedication to ending the conflict that has taken countless lives. I recently listened to a podcast by New York Times bestselling author and social worker Brené Brown, in which she interviewed two Parent Circle spokespersons, a bereaved mother, Robi Damelin, and Ali Abu Awad, a bereaved brother and founding leader of Tahrir, a non-violent Palestinian movement for social and political change. When asked, what is forgiveness? Robi Damelin shared a quote from another Parent Circle mother who said, forgiving is giving up your just right to revenge. Forgiving is giving up your just right to revenge. What a powerful statement from a parent whose child was killed in the conflict. And another bereaved parent added, forgiveness releases the other from their inhumanity. Parent Circle creates the space for the families of Jewish, Arab, and Palestinian victims of violence to come together in a kinship of the soul, sparked by their shared grief. As Ali stated, we both suffer the same consequences of this madness. We are not equal in our life conditions, but we are all victims. We can't share what is on the ground because we have different life circumstances, but we do share what is underground, that is the lost lives of our loved ones. As I mentioned before, Ali is the founder of the National Palestinian Non-Violence Movement called Tahrir. He explains that real peace and reconciliation require the courage to face the truth of both sides. It takes courage to see someone else's humanity. It requires strength and the need to divest from the competition over suffering and victimhood. Indeed, we all surely understand that anger and violence are endlessly self-perpetuating. The work of the Parent Circle disrupts that cycle by supporting victims on both sides of the conflict to face each other's pain. This, Ali says, is the foundation for any peace process. Nonviolence is the art of our humanity. When asked, what is the most helpful thing that we can do to contribute to a lasting peace? Both Robi and Ali said that we mustn't work for a ceasefire, but for a cease conflict. We should invest our resources in peace movements that continue to operate in Israel today and put pressure on our own government to support strategic peace-building efforts. Both peoples are suffering deep trauma. We all understand that aggression leads to more aggression, to more broken hearts, to more anger, more vengeance. Over the course of this terrible year, we have grown accustomed to reading the numbers of those wounded and killed each day. But each number is a priceless human being, a parent, a child, a sister, a brother. And let us remember too, that all the children who are suffering through this war in Israel, in Gaza, in the West Bank, and in Lebanon are being formed by these experiences. We have to ask the question, what kind of adults will they become? On this Yom Kippur, I am asking us all to soften our hearts, to acknowledge the pain and the grief that exists on both sides of this conflict. I'm asking us to take a courageous step toward peace by acknowledging our shared humanity, our kinship of the soul. It is all too tempting to climb a hill like Jonah, to look down at our enemies from a distance and pray for their destruction. Yes, that is the path of Jonah. But at the end of the story, God calls us and him to a different path, essentially reminding us all that all human beings are worthy of compassion. And so the end is embedded in the beginning. As we start our Yom Kippur journey, let us be courageous in our loving, in our relationships, and in our attitudes. Let us begin the work of softening the heart and pursuing peace, first within ourselves and hopefully by extension in our fractured world. Ashamnu, bagadnu, we have sinned, we have concealed. Dear God, let us uncover your truth, reveal your love, embody your forgiveness. May we all be inscribed for a good year, and may our world be inscribed for peace.